Aldo's Fine Cigars. The shop had always been there. No one knew for how long, and no one could remember when it first appeared. It was just there, wedged between buildings that changed hands every few years, a relic untouched by time. It wasn't in any directory, had no phone number, no website, no trace of its existence outside of those who had stepped through its doors. And once they did, they never really left. The neon sign above the shop hummed weakly, buzzing faintly in the night. Aldo's Fine Cigars. The lettering was cracked, barely visible through the smoke-stained glass. The scent that drifted from inside was unlike any cigar Jeremy had ever smelled before, deep, rich, ancient. It pulled him forward before he even realized he was walking. The bell above the door let out a sound that wasn't quite metal, wasn't quite glass. It was a wet chime, something thick and unnatural, curling through the air like a whispered warning. The shop was dim, lined with shelves of dark wooden boxes, each one unmarked, stacked high in perfect, unnatural symmetry. At the center of it all sat the man behind the counter, old, wrinkled, eyes too bright, too knowing. "You like cigars?" The voice was dry, a sound like dead leaves rustling in a room with no wind. Jeremy hesitated. Not really. The man didn't blink, didn't move. "You will." A single cigar slid across the counter toward him. It was dark, almost black, wrapped in a leaf that looked wet, glistening faintly under the dim light. It had no branding, no label, just a sickly sweet aroma that curled inside his sinuses, dulling his thoughts for a brief moment. "First one's free." He took it. That night he lit it on his balcony, staring out over the city. The first puff was smoother than anything he had ever tasted, and then the visions came. Not like dreams, not like thoughts, but memories of things that hadn't happened yet. He knew that his phone was about to ring, that it would be his father calling to say that something felt off, that he had a bad feeling. He knew that if he turned his head, the woman across the street would drop her wine glass in exactly 6 seconds. And it happened, exactly as he had seen it. The power was intoxicating. The next morning he tested it, took another drag. He saw the exact moment his barista would spill a latte. Saw the streetlight flicker before it happened. Saw the winning stocks hours before the market opened. It wasn't just luck, it was absolute knowledge. And he wanted more. He went back to the shop. The old man was waiting. "You want more." This time there was a price. Jeremy paid it without hesitation. The visions grew stronger. What had started as glimpses of minutes ahead stretched into hours, then days. He saw things before they happened, dodged accidents, made the right bets, manipulated conversations with eerie precision. But then, the side effects began. At first it was just small things, a headache, a nosebleed, a deep gnawing hunger that never quite went away. But soon the misfortune started. A woman walking past him on the street burst into flames. No explanation, no cause. A man in his building tripped down the stairs and snapped his neck at an impossible angle. He hadn't done anything to them, hadn't touched them, hadn't even spoken to them, but the cigars had. He should have stopped, but he couldn't, and neither could the others. Words spread in whispers, passed between desperate lips. Those who smoked knew, and those who knew would never stop. They came in droves, crawling out from the city's underbelly. Men in suits, junkies, housewives, the rich, the poor. All of them drawn to Aldo's. All of them chasing the same thing, just one more cigar. At first, they paid in money, but money wasn't enough. One by one, they traded. A man came in with a hand wrapped in bloodied cloth. When he unwrapped it, there was nothing beneath. He took a cigar with his remaining fingers, lit it with trembling hands. A woman limped in on one leg, her other pant leg sewn shut. She smoked deeply, her face contorting in a mixture of agony and euphoria. A man in the corner rocked back and forth, cradling an empty socket where his left eye had once been. And still, they smoked. For every glimpse into the future, something was taken. A hand for a day's worth of visions, a foot for a week, an eye for a year. And once they started, they could never stop. Jeremy saw it all. The addicts clawing at the door, screaming when the shop was closed. The fights that broke out over the last cigar in stock. The men who crawled inside, missing fingers, missing limbs, their bodies slowly unraveling with every drag they took. And still, he smoked. because he had seen what happened if he didn't. One night, after an especially deep puff, he saw it, his own death. Not a vague premonition, not a shadowy figure, but exactly how it would happen. The date, the time, the smell of gasoline in the air, the flickering street lamp above him, the sound of his own bones snapping as something moved in the darkness behind him. He tried to change it, tried everything, avoided the alley, moved apartments, changed routines. But no matter what he did, the future always corrected itself. And with every puff he felt it slipping away. Not just his time, not just his body, but his soul. One night he woke to the smell of smoke, not from the cigars, but from his lungs. His breath curled into thick black tendrils, moving against the air like something alive. His reflection in the mirror grinned back at him, but his mouth wasn't moving. And in that moment, he knew that he had already lost, knew that he was nothing more than another customer in a long, endless line. And behind him, in the darkness of the mirror's reflection, the old man watched and smiled, because the shop would always be there, waiting. And outside, the line of desperate smokers stretched down the street, some with missing hands, some with missing legs, some missing their own names, their own minds, their own identities, but all of them hopelessly, helplessly addicted. And inside, Aldo reached beneath the counter and placed a single cigar in front of the next customer. First one's free,